Good Gabs, sponsored by Skillskin, a nonprofit organization empowering individuals with disabilities through employment. Good Gabbers, you are in for a treat. If you don't know this next guest, it's time to learn more. This is Dirk Vastrick, and we're going to talk about a quote from Michael J. Fox. With gratitude, optimism is sustainable. If you can find something to be grateful for, then you can find something to look forward to, and you can carry on. Thanks, Dirk. Glad to have you today.
Thanks. Great to be here.
Heck yeah, we get to run into each other, in all sorts of different events, and yeah. But our listeners, they might not know you, Dirk. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, big subject, so to speak, but less than last year because I've lost 60 pounds. So,
oh, hey, congratulations!
But the story of my life is I was born to parents who believed in education, and I am one of the lucky people that had a great education. Got my BA. I've been through 40 years of sales and sales management before the last 8 years of my professional career. I moved into the private sector and went to work for WorkSource.
Where did you go to school?
I went to school at Seattle Pacific. It was then a college. It's now a university.
And a killer location.
Oh, yeah. I loved Seattle. When I lived in Seattle, I lived in a little house. First house that I lived in was actually a duplex, and it was an upper-lower, and it was right at the corner of the zoo, of the Woodland Park Zoo.
Nice.
So I got awakened by the peacocks every day. And then I got to move a little bit later to a little cracker box house, but it was on Alki Southwest, right at Harbor Boulevard. And I was looking straight up the shipping channel, and my view out my 2 picture windows every morning was just gorgeous, because on the right-hand side was downtown, and on the left-hand side, I was just watching the ferries cross in front.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I lovely.
Loved the water my whole life. I was a swimmer, singer in high school.
You ever swim in the Sound then?
I have swum in the Sound, and as a matter of fact, when I lived in Everett, swim in the Sound, you kick your feet, and there was enough phosphorus in the water that you actually would start to see a trail behind you.
What?
Yeah, it was kind of crazy.
That's my dream, actually. I've been searching for that. I want to jump in the water. I want to see, the glow, the phytoplankton. Like, I've never been able to do that. I'm ready. Yeah, I didn't know you could do it in the Sound. I've scuba dived a bunch off Alki right there. It's a pretty cool spot.
But you got to be ready for 54 degrees.
Oh, yeah.
Oh. Yeah, I did not wear wetsuits. So it's cold.
I like it.
But yeah, I was actually, I learned to swim very early. My parents believed that was really important. One of the things I ended up doing was I actually passed my junior lifesaver when I was a month before I turned 11. I couldn't even get it till I was 12.
Wow, you must have been a pretty powerful swimmer.
I was pretty good. I was a light frame guy back then, and we had a barrel-chested guy, about 240 pounds, who was the instructor. And he said, "I'm not going to go light on you, kid, because somebody drowning isn't going to go light on you." And he did everything he could, and he couldn't. I knew all the techniques, followed the techniques, and that's important. If you're going to do something, you got to do it the right way. And that was one of the early lessons that I learned.
Well, and it goes back to your parents as teachers.
Yeah.
Giving you opportunities to learn.
Yeah, my parents taught me a lot, but they were both chemists. And so I was how do you say square? But I learned scientific method early. And I actually had a chemistry kit as a kid. And then I tried to do some things I shouldn't have done with a chemistry kit and found out why you don't go off and try and run stupid experiments using bleach.
And ammonia?
Yeah, you got it. But
don't ask me how I know.
So the most recent, moving to more recent stuff is I learned a lot of sales, learned a lot of sales management, did a lot of...
That was my career too.
Drama. I remember you did medical sales, if I remember right. and then you had this shift in life that took place for you.
Yes.
So tell me about that shift in life and what precipitated that.
Well, for me?
Yeah, for you.
Yeah. Well, when you hang out in cancer centers all day, you start to get sad.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you're like, hey, how am I really giving back? You know, we see the medical system in this country, and you know, it's a tough place to be. And I wasn't direct care. I wasn't a nurse. I wasn't a doctor. I just had a piece of plastic that I had 300% markups on.
Mm-hmm.
So it was just I didn't know how I was giving back at that point, and I was searching, you know, how could I be in service to others, because that was kind of core to my being. I just didn't know it yet, and so that's what helped send me down a different path.
So mine was a little bit different. I never sold a product that I didn't believe in, but I got to a point in life where I said, I'd rather do something where I'm more involved, because a lot of my selling was teaching other people how to sell. So I did a lot of classroom stuff, and I wanted to do something where I could do that again. And I actually had been volunteering at WorkSource and coming in and teaching a little course to people that had not been exposed to computers that much, to try and get them just some basic computer literacy, and then of course, also promoted the company that I was working for that did computer training. So,
how'd you get connected to WorkSource like that?
Well, I knew a lot of people that worked down there, and I just leveraged those connections.
Were they your friends or just professional connections?
These were professional connections. I did a lot of networking back in the day. There were a number of different networking groups that came together, and a number of my good friends now are people that I met through just one night being at a mixer and talking to people and saying, hey, tell me about yourself, and you know, what is it that you do? And when you're looking for a client, who are you looking for? Hey, I might know somebody that would be interested in that.
A great salesperson, a natural connector.
Yeah.
So you were in Spokane at this time. Like, why Spokane? Yeah. How'd you get here?
Oh, dear. Well, I worked for Waterbeds Unlimited at one point in time. And
hot commodity in the 1980s, right? 70s.
Yeah, I worked central office. I was a purchaser for them. They sent me into hotspots when they were having challenges. I went to Utah one time.
You were the fixer?
Yeah, kind of. And then I came over here. They had lost their manager over here and had 2 stores here. And they parked me here, and I got here and I went, this really isn't bad. I kind of like this. I mean, I loved Seattle, but a little bit more relaxed lifestyle here. Quite a bit more affordable than being in the city of Seattle.
Oh, yeah. What year?
Oh, my goodness. It's been 26 years ago at least.
Okay, so the 90s.
Yeah. So it's
nice.
It's been an interesting transition. But I love Spokane, and I love the fact that this community has so much going for it. Leadership Spokane was one of the things that really opened my eyes to what's going on here in town. And I think you know a little bit about them, don't you?
Yeah, class of 2000 right here. Yeah, it's a wonderful program to get connected to, you know, other like-minded people who want to, you know, make an impact, and just to learn about our community, like you're saying.
And Dana's been through?
Yes, our executive producer, she sure has. A ton of people from Skillskin. We've been supporting that program for quite some time, and I think we're maybe 9 people have graduated out of that class, maybe more now.
So mentioning Skillskin, I happened to look up what Skillskin means.
Yeah. What do you think?
And I was thinking, well, if I was going to try and get a perfect match for something with Leadership Spokane, this would be it. This is what I found. It's Salish for a place where a person goes to seek personal identity and self-empowerment.
Incredible, right?
Right.
It sure fit for me.
I mean, and the work that Skillskin does has always been something that I've admired, and it's like little things like that make Spokane so very special. You know, Rick Clark and all the things that he's done. You had him as your very first guest, if I remember correctly, on this program. And what I've learned from Leadership Spokane is just, it's amazing. I mean, the people that I've run into, one of the very first people that I got to hear was Joe Albert from Gonzaga at the time. And Joe did some storytelling with us and helped us to understand the power of stories. And that was something that really struck a chord with me. So I kind of delved in, and I jumped in with Leadership Spokane kind of with both feet in 2016. And the reason I did it was...
And this is still while you were working at WorkSource, right?
Oh, yeah.
Because they got you. You were kind of flirting back in the day, teaching computer classes, but you came into the fold.
I did. Yeah, I went. As a matter of fact, it was partially because of what I was doing there at the time. I had this class that I had put together, and it was called E3, The Mindset of Success. And it was based on a book on entrepreneurship. And the 3 E's were engage, energize, empower. And that was the whole point of the program, was to do that. We wanted to do that because what I felt was there was this vast mess that we had left people in when they were unemployed. We taught people really well how to write a resume, and really well how to interview, and really well how to do this, and all the prescriptives were great. But what was missing was, how are we helping them to deal with the emotions that they're going through at that point in time? And I believe that true change seldom happens absent of emotion.
I love that. I agree.
So, because of that,
it's usually pain, right?
I asked for the opportunity to get back into the classroom with them. I was actually working in the business section because, of course, I had all this business experience.
Well, that was the first time I ever saw you, was in that class. We had Dawn Carver and Kevin on the show a few months ago. And
Episode 21.
Ooh, look back. I love it. And we got to talk about, like I met Lori down there when I was looking for hey, what am I going to do? And she, said, hey, why don't you go see this class? And it was your class. Yeah. And I went, and that first day it was it literally just gave me this space in my heart to say, yeah, I can change. I can do it. I didn't even go through your whole class. I was just there for the first day, but it impacted me so much that I was ready for change, and I knew I could do it. And I recommended many people over the years since then that did, go through your whole class and came out and said, Steve, thank you for sending me there. It was just it was powerful. So,
well, just so your listeners know, that the whole concept behind this was, it was about 35 hours of class. We tried different formats. The final format we ended up in was once a day, 5 days a week for 2 weeks. And the end results out of all of the time we went through, I had 87 different classes that I ran, had 1,100 graduates from the program.
1,100 good gabbers. That's a big number.
And out of the 1,100, over 93% went back to work within 6 months of the time that they had become unemployed. And I truly believe that's because we were able to minister to the person, not just do this, do this, do this.
That's what I felt, it was literally 2 hours was the first class. It was not long, but I remember I was oh, I have permission to change careers. Yeah. 'Cause I just thought, I was I'm a salesman. That's what I do. I'm going to do that forever. And I just never had given myself permission to even look outside that box that I created for myself.
Yeah. And what we learned through that was the 8 principles that helped people to be successful as entrepreneurs were the 8 principles that help people to be successful at life. And so after I first got in and we did a 3-month trial. It was Ewing Marion Kaufman Foundation, and they funded the whole thing. And it went so well during that the Workforce Council came back and said, hey, we think we got something here. We want to move forward with it. Here's the keys, drive the car. And I was kind of, well, wait a minute. I had a a master's of education, a master's of social work that was working with me on how to modify the program when we originally started it. And that wasn't going to be available anymore. I said,
those resources are gone.
So you say, and you want a little more emphasis now on success in life and a little less on the entrepreneurship, but still keep it in there. Who's going to write all that? They said, you are. And I had 45 days to rewrite the program, relaunch, and start it again. And then we were off and running. And the program continued until I left in February of 2019. And I had 2 replacements then trained by battling everybody to make sure that I had somebody trained to take it. And a year later, one of the things that I had always wanted to happen happened. It went statewide.
Wow.
I didn't like why it went statewide. It went statewide because COVID hit. And when COVID hit, you couldn't have live classes.
Right.
So the hand was forced on something that I've been pushing for a long time. Why don't we take whoever's doing best practices anywhere in the state, and instead of having 33 different centers that are providing this, how about we go out and we provide it from on a video format? Now, yes, it'll take a second person to be running the boards and paying attention to the questions that are coming in and bringing them up and doing that. But that means 2 people can be serving 33 different locations instead of one person serving one.
Yeah,
it didn't
it's incredible.
make any sense not to do it. Well, the hand got pushed when COVID hit, and the state suddenly goes, oh, maybe we should look at where their best practices are and who's teaching the best things and how we can then, and that's what happened. And suddenly this became broadcast. And so then it was able to actually go statewide.
Well,
and
that's incredible.
That was one of my dreams, was that would happen.
Well, and you put in the work to make it happen, because, right, if one person's leading things and you don't make a plan for when it's, like you were, leaving that job or retiring out of that work and moving into something else, it can all just fall apart. So you planned, and that takes vision, takes leadership, and then how exciting, like others saw it. Boom, big thing.
Yeah.
Statewide. Is it still going?
It is still going. I didn't want to invest 5 years of my life and then have something just kind of go boop and go away, especially based on the impact that we had seen. And I tell people, the big thing is, a lot of people say, oh, that must have been great. You changed so many people's lives. I said, no, I didn't. They changed their life.
Yes.
We just gave them the tools that they needed so that they could make that decision.
Yeah, an opportunity so they can have a different choice. We say that all the time in the disability world, like Skillskin. This is, true to our hearts. All we want to do is create more opportunities so people have more choice. And that's exactly what I hear, because that translates to anyone.
Yep.
Like any human who has more opportunities, has more choice. That's just a good life right there.
So
it's equitable life.
So as I'm going through and the program kept changing, I was writing different pieces into it. I would take current pieces of videos, change some of the videos up just to keep it contemporary. But one of the things that really helped me was going through Leadership Spokane and then seeing how the leadership principles of servant leadership lined up with what we were already teaching.
Did you know about servant leadership before you went that class?
I did. Yeah. Actually, because I was at WorkSource, I got invited a couple of times by Linda Finney, who was the then director at that point in time, to come and be part of the interview process. And as I was interviewing these people and seeing more and more and more about what the servant leadership was all about, I went, I'm going to have to disqualify myself from interviewing, being an interviewer next year, because I think I want to be an interviewee. And then I was able to take all of the stuff that I learned, and I actually then brought a bunch of that into the program and wrote that into the program. So it continued to evolve and expand. And, that was part of the reason that I wanted to go through. I think it's also part of the reason that they put me through. I mean, Leadership Spokane is intended to have a long-term effect on some current leaders or emerging leaders, and to give them the tools so that they can have an effect on the community for years to come. How many years to come do you have for somebody that you admit when they're about to turn 64?
Well, hopefully many.
Well, you hope so, but you know it's not the profile
True.
that you would expect.
So
And
were
yet,
you saying you were the oldest in your class?
I was,
Okay.
and they took a flyer on me, and I'm glad they did. And so I have immense loyalty as a result of that, and because of that, there are a couple of things that have happened. I became a supporter. I joined the Alumni Board before I even graduated. I became a member of the board of directors and served there for a couple of years. Served as a vice chair 1 year. But things did continue to evolve and change, and my relationship with them then became one of, I'm going to start utilizing my skills to try and help this organization.
Yeah, because you
And
believe in the mission of it.
Absolutely.
You believe in young leaders.
So one of the first things I did was I looked at the classes, and I recognized that it was difficult for us to be able to get the diversity that we wanted in the class. So I established a new scholarship, and it's called the WEV Education Scholarship, and WEV stands for Walter and Eleanor Vastrick. They're my parents. My parents.
It's pretty on brand, folks who believed in opportunity and teaching.
That was the whole idea, and then those scholarships still continue today. That's one of the things that that I thought was important to do. And the other thing that I thought it was important to do was they gave me the opportunity, partially as a result of the involvement level that I was at then, to come and tell my personal story at the end of the retreat, which is the first thing that you do in the year for Leadership Spokane. And I tell
I remember when you came.
Yeah, I tell my story about my son having an automobile accident now 30 some years ago, and having closed head injury, and we didn't know whether we were going to actually be able to keep him or not, whether he's going to be alive, and some of the amazing things that happened and the people that touched his life, and how that changed our lives forever. But one of the things that really changed my life at that point in time was understanding that I had to have gratitude, even in a situation where he was no longer going to be able to walk for the rest of his life. He wasn't going to be able to feed himself. He doesn't have voluntary use of his right arm. I mean, there's a lot of stuff. And the things that I can be grateful for in that situation are, number one, my wife and I are closer as a result of that than we probably ever could have been in any other way. Not that I would wish this on anybody, but
sure.
Hey, I learned gratitude in a real hurry. I learned that if I cannot be grateful for what I do have, then I'm not going to be worth much. And I tried to find where in this was the chance to expand. And so, forgiving the driver of the vehicle who happened to be a relative. That was one of the things. That I just learned so much from that.
Gratitude's powerful.
But then I also learned that I started seeing things differently. And where in the past I always had a lot of compassion, some of the edges were still a little rough. And one day I was driving off of the Freya Street exit, and as usual, this is about 2017, as usual, there were people there that were houseless and were looking for something. And I realized I wasn't even looking at them anymore. I was looking through them. It was like they weren't even there.
Yeah, there's no eye connection, no acknowledgement.
And I was disgusted with myself. And I said, this has got to change. And I went around the corner. I went to Fred Meyer. I plunked down $10. I bought $10 worth of water. And I went back and I started handing out water to the people. And now I had a reason to look for them instead of past them or through them. And that became a personal challenge for me. So during the summer, then I carried cold water. I always had 2 of the cold ones, and then I had the rest of them in the trunk. And I started doing that. And then when the winter hit, I got these little hand warmers and foot warmers, and protein bars. And now, so it evolved. And then I got an idea, and I said, Leadership Spokane's giving me this beautiful opportunity to go in and talk to people about something that has affected me. I should talk about this too. And so I did, but I didn't tell them what I was going to do in advance. And what I did is something that now has been living for the last 5 years or so, called the $10 challenge. And if I had one thing that could happen as a result of this podcast that I would love to see, I would love to see this idea go absolutely viral. And the $10 challenge is, I walked in with $600 in $10 bills, 60 people in the class, handed it to one of the people that works on staff and said, when I say go, I want you to go hand out one to every member of the class.
I remember I was real surprised when you did that in my class. I was like, what is happening?
So we hand out the $10, and here was the challenge. You can't use it for yourself or for a family member. You have to make a difference in somebody's life in your community, and you have to report back to me what you did.
I love that accountability piece.
Yeah. Those are the only rules. If you do this, great. If you don't want to do it, give the money back to the person that you just got it from, and we will put it into the youth scholarship funds. And that's okay too.
What happened in those first couple of years? Did people not take it? Did some of that money go into youth scholarship funds?
First year, 54 of the 60 accepted the money.
Okay, so they rose to the occasion.
They went forward with it and did it. And I got some of the most beautiful things back. One of them was, hey, I just took your idea and I did the same thing. But I took my kid with me, my boy, and my boy was the one that was handing out the water. And he was learning from that what it means to, take care of humans around you. And I was like, wow.
Seeing a little ripple take effect.
I got another one, which was about a family that reconnected with a skateboarder that had been living down at the park. They'd lost track of him, and they got back. Somehow he showed up and he said, hey, I'm sorry to ask, but I really need some money. And they were worried, because he had some problems with drugs in the past and that sort of thing. They were worried about giving him money, but they sat down and met with him for lunch and talked with him. And it turned out that he's married. He had a kid now. They'd run out of money for diapers.
Wow.
So that family not only took him and bought the diapers for him, but bought some toilet paper and some other necessities that they had, reconnected with him in a way, and found out he was clean, and that he was supposed to go for an interview for a job the next week. And I mean, he was putting his life back together. And to hear them tell that story about, my initial thought was, oh no. And then I thought about, I've got this $10. Let's see where it goes. And then to me, it's not about what the total dollar impact is. To me, what it's about is, how does it change the way that you view your fellow human beings? That's the key. And I tell every class that.
What drives that about you? Like, what feeds you when others may, see humans in a different light?
Well, the impact is, take a look at our society right now.
Well, I see the societal impact. I'm talking about the impact of you. Well, how does this feed you?
Well, true change seldom happens absent of emotion. If we can touch people at an emotional level, and change can take place, I think it kind of, it's like the waves. If you remember when you did the stuff where you did the wave theory and you did the little thing and you watch the waves and how they intersect and how they build. Yeah, it's that kind of idea. Is that this can become something where what we can do is get back in touch with the people that surround us instead of being separated from the people around us. And it's really, really easy to find the stuff that's wrong. Anybody can do that. It's a lot harder to find the stuff that's right. And this is just a reminder to start looking for the stuff that's right, and to participate in the idea that there really is enough for all. I mean, hey, listeners, if you're out there and you have $30 in your wallet, well, you're unusual, because most people now just carry plastic. But
Me included.
if you've got $30 at the end of the month, what if you took 10 and you went out and looked for some place that you could improve your community with that $10? Can you take it and do something for just one person? Can you take that and multiply it by working with others and making things? I mean, one of the years.
Well, here, let's stop there for a second. Good gabbers, you heard it right here. Dirk's saying it. Find $10 and see what you can do. See what kind of impact that is. And I want you to email Dirk. Email us. Put it on our social. What did you do with that $10? We want to know more. And we're going to share this out to everybody. So if you commit to that, I commit to getting this out. And Dirk, yeah, share with us some of the stories you get back. What's your email address? How can they send the story to you?
You can send stories to me at dvpresents@gmail.com.
dvpresents@gmail. Yes. Okay. I can't wait.
That's my company.
Let's start something right here in this room, and right here at the Spokane Library.
Here's the kind of impact that it's now having. Last year, the group decided, some of the people just did their own thing with the $10, but then they all also came together and pooled their money and built a video and approached other folks and raised money for the Ronald McDonald House. And they raised, out of the $600 seed money, they raised $10,108. And
awesome.
And if you're ever wondering, what can I do that can have an effect? You might think, like a lot of people did when I first issued the $10 challenge, $10 can't do anything. But that's not what the stories that I've received have told me. The stories that I've received have told me $10 may not mean that much to me, but it can be the world to somebody else. And you have an opportunity to reach out, and the main thing is you start looking for the opportunity to be of service to somebody. And that's the game changer in all of this, is to be of service to somebody else. So this year, I haven't heard the results yet, but they're attempting to buy industrial sewing machines for 5 immigrants to the United States.
Okay.
So that they can continue to do the things that they did in their home countries in the Middle East, now that they have immigrated here to the United States. And then anything that's left over is going to go to computers for education for those that are coming here.
Is this at a world relief, or?
I don't know who they're going to utilize to
we're going to know soon.
What we're going to know.
But that impact, right? Like,
yeah.
And now that a standard was set, like, hey, we can really multiply this.
Yep.
And who knows what the next iteration is too, right? It just doesn't matter because it's $10.
Yep.
And people together and wanting to help and impact. Sky's the limit.
And you never know what's going to hit you and what's going to become an opportunity. I mean, my church had a fire in January of last year. We were no longer able to worship at that facility. We're looking at that facility. We got to figure out, what are we going to do? So one of the things we're looking at now, and we're working with the city currently to see if we can get the zoning, is to build a much smaller facility for us, but attached to it have a facility that would be housing for immigrants, and allow them to have a place that they can have affordable housing here in town.
Which is so needed.
And, well, I mean, you just look at how many people we're housing right now next to the freeway.
Yep.
In that old hotel, which has now become something very, very special. And these are people who are refugees. And so
Dirk's talking about Thrive. If you don't know about that
Thrive
organization,
yeah.
go check it out. Go look them up on the internet.
Yeah. Oh, one of our graduates, Olivia Brownlee, I won at an auction a house thing from her, a house concert. And so what I've done with that, with her permission, is we're going to contact Thrive, and what we're going to do is, instead of having them come to my house, I want her to go to their house.
You are a force multiplier, sir.
I think it's going to be really cool.
Yes.
So, anyway, you get a pretty good idea. I do want to mention, if you have rising juniors or seniors in high school, Leadership Spokane, although the adult class is now already closed for next year, we're still accepting applications for those rising juniors and seniors. By the way, they are so smart, and their brains haven't been polluted as much as some of us that have so much in our brains now. They run like 3 or 4 hour sessions at night, and they're done. We run a full day just to get the same effect on adults, but these young people they get it. And I mean, I think, Dana, didn't you say someone from your family went through the program?
My daughter.
Your daughter, yeah. So, I mean, there's an opportunity. If you're looking for a way to help to instill some of the things that you've heard me talk about today in young people, there's an opportunity, Spokane, and don't miss that opportunity. There are scholarships available. It is not really expensive for the youth program, because it is heavily endowed. But talk to your kids. See if this is something that maybe strikes a little spark with them. And by the way, they will be with kids from all over the county. So that it'll be a great experience in meeting people from other schools and other walks of life. It's just fabulous.
Well, I couldn't agree more. Our daughter, Savannah, hit the send button on Sunday. I kind of told her, she'd been following what I was going through, in 2020. And I'd talk about it, at the dinner table. And, I kind of planted that seed earlier. She was, much younger, but she's a junior now. And she's like, yeah, I'm ready. So I'm excited, and I hope she's part of this next year's class.
I hope so too. It's a life-changing experience.
So tell us more about Dirk Vastrick Presents, the retired, unretired Dirk. And I love that. It's like, so how else are you connecting dots in Spokane?
Okay, well, let's see. The rundown of retired. Okay, I retired in February of 2019 from WorkSource. Still part-time caregiver for my son. My wife is a saint. She's been the primary caregiver for this entire time period. She allowed me to go out and have a work life other than that for 30 some years. I had always told her, when the time comes that physically no longer able to do it, I'll quit. I'm coming home, I'll be there. And that's exactly what I did when she told me. So, but I'm still doing part-time caregiving. I'm pretty involved with my church, and I'm also the one that gets to negotiate with the insurance company.
Good luck.
Yeah, that hasn't been fun. And I have my involvement with Leadership Spokane, of course, and I'm doing that. But then also on the side, I have this little company called Dirk Vastrick Presents. And what I do is I do motivational speaking. I do training for organizations, and I also come in and do some business analysis with organizations. And I've had the privilege of course, I volunteer my time to do some of those things with Leadership Spokane, but I've also had the opportunity to go to the American Academy of Forensic Sciences annual scientific meeting for the last 5 years in a row now.
How?
Well, my brother is a forensic scientist.
All right. Good job, brother.
Leverage things. But yeah, and they're young forensic scientists. they're just not teaching people how to put together a curriculum vitae, or as most people know it, a resume, which frankly is probably what they're going to have coming out of school anyway, because they're not going to have all of these published items or anything. So I teach them how to do that. And then I give them some tips on how to do interviewing. And then I and several other folks who are in the profession will sit down afterwards, and people will just come up with their resume, either electronically or printed. And then I review it with them and give them some ideas on how to improve it based on the stuff that I've just talked with them about. And like I said, they liked it well enough that I just completed my 5th year of doing this back in February down in Orlando, Florida.
That's awesome.
So that was one of the things. And the other thing, the other signature piece, I guess, that I've done since then, other than going back and teaching some courses at WorkSource, was there is a workforce summit that takes place annually. What happened was, it hadn't happened for about 3 years.
The summit, is it here in Spokane?
Yeah.
Okay.
And the summit, the summit is all of the organizations that the Workforce Council is involved with. So all of the sites, all of the partner sites, affiliates, all of them come together, 7 or 8 different organizations, about 150 folks. And it was the first time they'd all been together in one place in 3 years. And the council got in touch with me and said, would you be interested in being our keynote speaker? And so I put together the keynote. I said, what do you want me to talk about? And they said, no, that's up to you. I said, well, wait a minute. I said, tell me a little bit more. And we talked about it. And it was all about reconnecting, after being apart for 3 years. And I think the message was really valuable, because what I ended up deciding to talk about was the fact that every single person standing in that room and sitting in that room had gone through what's called complex stress disorder. They went through trauma. We all went through trauma when everything got closed down,
Absolutely.
when COVID hit, when we didn't know what was going to happen next, what's going on, people are dying, and it becomes complex stress disorder, because it's not something that's, I had a car accident, okay, and now I'm on, deal to the next thing, work through it, get better, go. No, this was an ongoing thing for a couple of years, and we're still seeing the effects. I mean, I had an active case of COVID 3 weeks ago, even though I've had every single shot in the book. So it's still a little scary.
But you got to be in that room and deliver this address.
Right.
Yeah.
And talk about, so number one is, let's recognize we've all been through this. And don't diminish that. And how do you handle it? Well, first of all, you make sure that you're in a place where you've got some safety, Maslow's. Start from a place of safety. Establish safety to where you feel secure. Then the second step was to reconstruct that trauma story. You have to go back and relive it emotionally, and then understand what were the messages, what are the things that I can learn from this, how can I now take this in a positive direction, not just the fear and the trauma, because fear will paralyze us.
Absolutely.
The limbic brain takes over. And when you're in fear, it just steals all of the blood from the rational brain, and you go into some crazy irrational stuff that starts happening inside the brain because you're afraid you're going to die. And it's okay if that's what's about to happen, that happens, because it's amazing stuff that happens to us as humans. And time starts to slow down for us. That's because our brain's working at 100 times faster than normal based on all of the stuff that's just been released into our system. But if you're doing that every single day on everything that is any kind of threat whatsoever, you're shortening your life.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you're killing yourself. I mean, you're just killing yourself. So it was reconstruct that trauma story so that it's not killing you. And then the last step was reconnect. Go back. Get these connections back. Talk to people again. Like I had to reconnect with people that were on the street in my life in order for me to be restored back to where I was back in 2017, and make those steps. And then when you do that, you become empowered by these connections and these relationships. And I know that the people that watch this podcast or listen to this podcast understand that there is real power in relationships. Everybody that comes on here talks about the power of relationships. And so make sure that you're making those connections. Don't try to go and do it alone. I had those portions of my time. I tried to do it alone, and those are the darkest times of my life.
Yes, they
trying
are.
to do it that way.
Yeah, I know. I just I truly believe in that, the power of connection and the multiplier when people come together. And Dirk, we are so happy to have you on this program.
Well,
thank you so much for joining us today. It's been an incredible conversation. I cannot wait to see what, the unretired man does, because, you're in Spokane, you're touching all aspects. And listeners, again, remember, $10 challenge. We want to hear about it. Send your story to Dirk. Let's, expand this outside the walls of Leadership Spokane, because we can really make an impact. Dirk, thanks for joining us.
Great. Thanks for having me.